You know that feeling when the plane takes off and you feel yourself being pressed into the seat? That's acceleration. The increasing speed as the plane lifts into the sky, the ground disappears below, and the world around you moves faster. But witnessing acceleration is a lot different than being in control of it. Today's cloud landscape can feel a lot like that. The rate of change is increasing. Innovation is moving at light speed, and so are the challenges. Being a passive observer or sticking with the status quo isn't enough to keep up with the demands of today's business, but there are ways to bend the curve. Ways to turbocharge productivity, to speed time to market, and transform to spur new levels of innovation. Ways to accelerate your organization with you in control, while the rest of the world plays catch-up. So, ready for takeoff?
Please welcome Director of Technology at AWS, Shaun Nandi.
Hi everyone, it is so great to be here with you at reInvent. This is my 10th time attending and I am super pumped up. Buckle up because today we're putting you in the pilot seat and we're going to show you how to accelerate. We're going to dive deep into architecture and hear from some incredible customers about how they are building innovative apps on AWS. My colleague Ben, our Asia Pacific tech leader, who is celebrating his 7th anniversary this week with Amazon, will join us shortly. But first, I want to set the stage for our discussion and get you in the right frame of mind. And to do that, I want to pick up where that intro video left off and talk a little bit about physics. reInvent should leave you inspired about acceleration. With all the announcements right here this week, Matt's incredible keynote this morning, and all the news you've been hearing all year about technology, things can feel a little bit overwhelming. But one thing is clear, everything is accelerating. Let's start with some insights. We're all used to technology evolving, but today, the rate of tech innovation is increasing at a pace like never before. Data continues to explode, especially unstructured data, which is 90% of what all of you are storing today. Foundation models for generative AI are evolving at an incredible rate, introducing step changes in functionality many, many times per year across many model providers. That's a lot of manys. That change almost feels continuous. The advancements have real implications for the value businesses can drive, unlocking the ability to automate more parts of your business and opening the door for new products that seemed impossible last year. The increasing volume of data, the rise of generative AI workloads, and real-time processing demands are driving compute right to the edge. And you know no one has more edge locations than we do. Having to leverage AI at the edge is becoming table stakes for delivering a great customer experience. It's about helping your customers get there faster and easier. Think about your own expectations. When you reach out to a call center, you expect the agent on the other end to be an expert. You don't want to be escalated to a supervisor. You don't want to wait to have your problem solved. And you don't want to have to explain your context. You want that agent to know everything that you want them to know, and it's not just about the rate of technology innovation, it's about the customer expectation that is constantly increasing. Now, with all the exciting developments comes increasing concerns. New threat vectors are going beyond traditional cyber and DDoS attacks. You need your tools to match the threats that you might face. Think about how AI can help you defend and protect, helping your team predict threats and respond more quickly. Organizations have also been telling us that their tech stacks are getting more complicated. To me, this represents a moment in time, and it's going to start simplifying. As your engagement with AI evolves, you're seeing new tools like Amazon Bedrock, the all-new Amazon SageMaker, and Amazon Q that help you abstract away complexity, remove undifferentiated heavy lifting, and give you choice and flexibility without needing to manage every little detail. Take a look. Everything really is accelerating. That puts pressure on the business, on all of us, to keep up. And it can feel daunting. So how do we make an impact? You have to bend the curve. You have to accelerate the rate of change. So instead of feeling like you're playing catch-up, you're in a leadership position. How do you accelerate productivity, your time to market, and your organizational agility? So I'm going to take you back and dust off the physics part of your brain and go back to high school for a few seconds. I grew up around physics. I wasn't a physics major, much to my family's disappointment. My father was a research physicist. My mother taught physics. But they taught me how to apply it everywhere. Hopefully everyone remembers Newton's basic equation. Force equals mass times acceleration. If you want to influence acceleration, you have to solve for it. In this case, acceleration equals force divided by mass. And we have to think about mass as the problem we're trying to influence. The bigger the problem, the more force that we need. And how do we increase it? Well, in most of our day jobs, that would translate into more people, more money, more effort. We know that's not realistic. What are other options? Well, we know from physics that we can increase force without dramatically increasing effort. We don't need to reinvent the wheel here. Was that a little too obvious? Who remembers all the simple machines that help propel civilization? The lever, the pulley, the screw. At the heart of all of these simple machines is the same concept: leverage. Leverage is the fundamental way that each of us can increase the force we produce without increasing the amount of effort required. The concentrated effort enabled by leverage lets us solve challenges that weren't possible to solve before. How does this translate to today's cloud architecture? Why does this all matter to you? You need to ask yourself some questions. How much of my development pipeline is automated? Have we democratized data to empower teams and help speed innovation? And what can we do to boost productivity? If you don't have a plan to address these areas, not only are you going to not be able to stay ahead of today's business needs, you're going to start to fall behind. At Amazon, we gain leverage by investing in teams that can tackle the most difficult problems shared across the organization, by making capabilities like security, resilience, modernization, data, and generative AI available to anyone as services. This removes the burden on individual teams and enables them to focus on differentiating work. This is a very Amazonian way of operating, and we've done it for 25 years. You can do all of these things. Today, we're going to explore 3 areas of cloud architecture, all of which can give you leverage in order to accelerate your business. We'll look at how to amplify the impact of your developers, your data, and breakthrough technologies like generative AI. And we'll be joined by leaders at Intuit, ANZ Bank, and Siemens who have used these approaches to accelerate solutions for their teams and their customers. So as I said, buckle up, let's dive in. I'm delighted to welcome to the stage Ben Cabanas.
Well, thank you, Shaun. Hi, everyone. It is great to be here with you. Let's jump right in, and we're going to start by exploring how we can gain leverage by taking advantage of innovation in developer tools, frameworks, and platforms. In today's fast-paced business environment, time management has become a critical challenge for our organizations. Our customers often express a desire for their developers to dedicate more time to innovation, delivering critical and differentiating features that can give them a competitive edge. In fact, and on average, only 30% of their time is spent on high-value tasks that contribute directly to product innovation and differentiation. So let's flip this on its head. Most generative AI assistants today are focused on coding, which is great, but what developers need is a tool that reduces the tedious manual tasks that comprise the bulk of their day. Amazon Q Developer accelerates tasks across the entire software development lifecycle, making it easier to build, secure, manage, and optimize applications on AWS. But look, AI capabilities are really just that. They're capabilities. It's about how we apply them effectively, strategically. If you think about CI/CD pipelines, DevOps, automation, even modernization, none of this is new to us. We've been doing this for many, many years. But what has changed is that the white space, or the bottlenecks in your existing software development lifecycle, can now be addressed even more effectively with generative AI. So let's zoom into the development lifecycle with our leverage lens on, and we're going to explore some art of the possible. Now, you're probably familiar with the way that we visualize DevOps. It allows builders to continuously gain feedback and iterate very quickly. One way to improve productivity is to use AI tools to automate some of the heavy lifting that's often required. So let's take a look at how we do this in the plan phase. Today, Q is transforming how developers work through autonomous AI agents. And while we're still in the early days, these agents can leverage knowledge of APIs, systems, and best practices to independently complete tasks like implementing features, refactoring code, and performing software upgrades. Acting as an expert assistant, these agents autonomously plan and execute multi-step workflows to dramatically amplify your productivity. You provide high-level requirements, and the agents assist with all the tasks while keeping you in the loop. The ability to accelerate software feature development can save builders days or even weeks of time. But they still need to manually create documentation, perform code reviews, and package pull requests. Now, you can also autonomously perform these tasks as well. Designing and implementing new application features is now faster than ever. And one customer, National Australia Bank, realized a code acceptance rate of 40%. The other cool thing that we can do now is to manage and optimize AWS resources using just natural language. We're reimagining AWS resource management by bringing together a customer's AWS account context, Q's deep AWS service knowledge, and a decade of AWS resource management expertise. Customers simply describe a task. For example, add a new S3 bucket and invoke a Lambda function whenever something's written to that bucket. And Q is going to return with its proposed changes along with a visual representation of the impacted resources. We expect these new capabilities to dramatically increase the rate of operational task completion. And it goes without saying that an AI coding companion is very useful when thinking about testing. And one good example of this is just automatic unit test generation based on the code that you're working on. Deloitte, in fact, realized a 70% reduction in testing time and a 40% increase in development speed using this approach. After that, we're ready to release and deploy our newly coded feature. And wouldn't it be great if we could just put those deployments on autopilot? Q has a new agent for release management that allows us to simply describe our build and test requirements, deployment targets, release preferences, all in natural language. It understands the impact of the new code changes to the application, automatically generates and manages the entire release workflow, creates recommendations for safe changes to production, and autonomously manages the release process. Using this agent for release management, we expect customers to realize reduced deployment errors, decreased deployment time. Lastly, we have to operate this new code and application, and it can be incredibly time-consuming to debug or troubleshoot issues. Q can accelerate this process by automating root cause analysis. It monitors operational data to proactively discover and notify customers of potential issues, then analyzes and summarizes the issue in natural language, providing evidence and guidance to speed up resolution times. Content orchestration company Concord saw a 50% reduction in bug fix time using Q Developer. And there you have it. In addition to some of the automation and features that already existed, you can now further address the white space in your software development lifecycle by leveraging AI. Modernization is also a critical enabler for leverage. But what you choose to modernize in your application portfolio and when is just as critical as how you go about it. There can be many compelling reasons to modernize, from end-of-life scenarios to expensive licensing costs, security issues, or sometimes just gaining speed and agility in delivering business value. We need to make difficult choices on what to prioritize when modernizing our application landscape, rather than trying to modernize the entire portfolio in one go. And it makes sense to invest in the applications that add differentiating business value or are mission critical. But those are just the tip of the iceberg. What about the mundane, the non-differentiating applications in your portfolio? It often still makes sense to modernize those too, but you might not have the resources to do so. If you hire software engineers, would you rather use their time to do Java upgrades or build new, innovative products and features? This can be a real pain point, and that's why we want to automate this as much as possible. And Gen AI can come to the rescue here. Q developer transformation capabilities can help us with automating the modernization efforts on those legacy software stacks, which are often expensive, render us unable to take advantage of technology innovation, and often have high operational overhead, especially for those that require specialized expertise. As you heard in Matt's keynote, we've expanded the range of projects Amazon Q is accelerating to include VMware to EC2 migrations, modernizing legacy .NET code in order to move from Windows to Linux, and modernizing mainframe applications to run in the cloud. As one proof point, also that you heard from Matt, Amazon used Q to update tens of thousands of production applications from legacy versions of Java, improving the productivity of our developer teams. That's the kind of leverage that we're talking about when we use the right kind of developer tools. So in summary, we really want to use automation and AI-driven tools to help make developers more productive and increase their satisfaction, but also improve application quality as well as security and reliability. Spending less time on repetitive tasks means more time spent on innovation, value-creating tasks through greater agility at less cost. This is what we see at Amazon, but it's always great to hear similar experiences with our customers. So it's my great pleasure to invite up on stage the Chief Architect for Development Platforms at Intuit, Ed Lee.
Good afternoon, everyone. So Intuit is a financial services company. Our customers are consumers, small businesses, and increasingly mid-market enterprises. We have a total of 8,000 developers worldwide, and they're supported by a platform organization of about 750 people. That includes both technical and non-technical roles. And the charter for this organization is to improve development productivity so that our applications teams can deliver and ship new features with new technologies as fast as possible to our customers while maintaining the highest levels of engineering and operational excellence. And by consistently investing in this development strategy, we've achieved an increase in development velocity of over 8x as measured by the number of production releases per developer per week over the last 4 years. If we look at where our developers are spending their time, we find that they spend most of their time in the inner and outer loops. The inner loop corresponds to activities that correspond to like writing the code, essentially, generating the product. whereas the outer loop is about deploying, releasing, and operating the product in production. Now, requirements and design is also an important aspect of the whole cycle, but because they don't spend a lot of time in it, it's hard to improve development productivity just by reducing the amount of time they spent in requirement and design. Looking at the inner and outer loop a little bit more in more detail, like many of the other companies here, I'm sure many of your companies, one of the things we did immediately was to deploy AI-assisted coding agents, coding assistants for our developers. We were surprised to find, however, that they didn't get as much a productivity boost as we thought they would. And in fact, once the novelty wore off, a lot of particularly our senior developers stopped using them altogether. So we started to look into this problem. Why was this happening? And we found out that coding assistants, off-the-shelf coding assistants, are great at helping you write open source software that they've been trained on. But for enterprises, it doesn't know anything about our designs, our documentation, our APIs, our libraries, the services that these applications have to use, the tests that we have to write. It doesn't know anything about that. These are all information that's critical to human developers. And it turns out they're also important to AI assistants. So we were not happy. We did not want to accept this kind of marginal return on investment. We thought we could do much better. So we went back to the drawing board. And we decided to incorporate all of this context into the code generation process. But before we could do that, we had to aggregate this information, index this information, and store it in a system where this information could be served to the code generators, right? And this is where horizontal capabilities like AWS Bedrock come in really useful, because Bedrock contains capabilities at every layer of the stack that you need in order to aggregate, index, and serve this information, not just for code generation, but for all of your AI-powered applications. So once we did this, the difference was dramatic. Web application developers with off-the-shelf coding assistants were reducing developer coding time by 5%. By the way, 5% over 8,000 developers is still a big number. It's a big savings. It's well worth achieving. But with Intuit-specific context about our designs, our APIs, they were now able to save over 50% of their time coding. So a huge change. Very worthwhile, right? And by the way, with the right context, the code generators are also great at refactoring code. And for refactoring code, you can often save 80% or more of the coding time. So this is great for technology refreshes, right? How many people here need to get onto a newer version of Java? Anyone? OK. We have that on our to-do list as well. OK, so let's go back now to the outer loop. For the outer loop, we discovered that a lot of our applications teams were not very familiar with Kubernetes, the platform we were using to deploy our applications. And Intuit was one of the very first adopters of EKS at scale. And we worked closely with AWS to add all of the enterprise features we needed in order for us to use it effectively. They were having problems with all kinds of things. They didn't know how to configure readiness probes, liveness probes, how to configure autoscaling. Kubernetes has many autoscaling options, many ways to do autoscaling. They also didn't know how to detect problems properly and to roll back their application automatically when problems occur. Now, to solve this problem, we had to do more than just apply AI-generated tools. We had to actually design new application abstractions for our application developers. We had to hide the complexity of the underlying infrastructure for them. And to do this, many of the AWS services that are provided were very helpful to our platform teams in order to implement the abstractions that our application teams needed. Once we had this abstraction, it also freed the platform teams to innovate more freely. Before, whenever they updated something in the platform, they had to coordinate that with the application teams because they were afraid of breaking the application. But once we had the application abstraction, once that contract was set, they could innovate, they could make changes to the underlying platform without affecting the applications teams. So this allowed the applications teams to incorporate new technology and upgrade the platform much faster. So it increased the velocity of the platform teams. So looking back to summarize, yes, you can get productivity improvements by using off-the-shelf tools. But if you really want to get full benefits, you are probably going to have to invest time in curating and aggregating the content you need to drive that process, right? And there's no substitute for that, right? Because if your human developers find this information useful, so will the AI assistants, right? Second, in order to improve operational excellence, we had to invest in improving the platform itself, right? Not just applying the AI-generated tools. We had to actually build a better platform for our users. And that's where AWS services like EKS, Carpenter, Transit Gateway, and upcoming new services like Lattice, Tachyon, we're very interested in that. And these existing services really helped our platform teams to deliver the platform that our developers wanted much faster. Finally, I think it may be somewhat unrealistic to assume that your developers can deliver the magical AI experiences that your customers want if they don't know how to use these tools themselves to improve their own productivity. So I think exposing them to these tools, getting them to use them, getting them to evaluate new technology, AI technology as it becomes available, is a critical part of this. It's part of increasing the AI literacy and educating your development teams about what is and is not possible with the current technology. Right? Well, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Ed. Some really great key learnings there as we think about developer platforms and frameworks. Next up, we want to focus on leveraging data more efficiently, and that often starts with the right strategy, a modern data strategy. I think everyone in this room knows this and would probably agree, data is a strategic asset in today's technology landscape. Looking at some of the research, barely a quarter of businesses feel that they've been successful at becoming a data-driven organization. So what does it take? How do we maintain that position of leverage for the work required while satisfying a sprawling set of requirements and use cases? Traditionally, you would invest in a multi-year roadmap to centralize all of the data in your organization. And at the end of that journey, your business stakeholders were simply not finding value. This approach often creates bottlenecks with central teams and technologies that limit agility. That makes it really hard for the business to discover or consume data and limits the ability to drive business outcomes. In contrast, a modern data strategy focuses on data as a product, with producers and consumers of data in your organization who can discover and enrich that data with tools that are appropriate for their function or their line of business. Data can flow from various sources and business units in well-defined products that people, applications, and devices can subscribe to. Now, some of the cataloging and governance, it might be centralized, but the overall flow of data isn't guarded by one team alone. The most employed patterns or architectures for this approach are the data mesh and the data fabric. So which one should you choose? Well, as always, it depends on your use case and it depends on your business. It's also possible that you might need to implement both patterns. A data mesh allows you to democratize access to data within an organization with decentralized and domain-oriented governance. That works really well in a large business with different divisions and/or business units. But if you have well-defined inputs at high velocity, a data fabric is likely a better choice. Bottom line is, both a data mesh and a data fabric can be useful. Most importantly, employ the strategy or the strategies that reduce bottlenecks, that maximize self-service, optimize security, governance, and compliance. Organizations adopting these approaches are seeing incredible results. Life sciences leader Gilead has increased search accuracy while reducing search times by over 50% and realized operational improvements like compliance automation. Financial services company Itaú saw a 95% reduction in customer analysis processing time and implemented new data-driven processes across the company. And Salesforce saves millions of dollars per year, budget they've applied to tools like SageMaker to speed insights and inform decision-making. By adopting a modern data architecture, companies can create significant leverage. This approach involves empowering teams to treat data as a product and integrating it seamlessly with analytics. In this model, teams across the company can use data products while meeting security and governance requirements, removing individual data owners as bottlenecks. This shift also increases the agility of domain teams, improves data quality and scalability, and fosters a culture of innovation. But don't just hear it from me. ANZ Bank has a winning data strategy enabled by their data mesh. And so it's my pleasure to invite up on stage the head of data and analytics for institutional technology at ANZ Bank, Helene Simitzis.
Hi, and welcome. My name is Helene Simitzis, and I'm the head of data and analytics for institutional technology at Australia and New Zealand Bank. At our bank, we've been unleashing the power of the data mesh and really starting to see the benefits of that. You know, ANZ has a rich history. We've been in business for almost 200 years and are headquartered in Melbourne, Australia. We serve retail and commercial clients across Australia and New Zealand, and institutional clients across our 29 geographies. Our purpose is to shape a world where people and communities thrive. And that's why data is so important to us. I'd love to get a show of hands. Who uses banking services today in their everyday life? I think it's fair to say that banking services are an integral part of our community. And we don't take this trust for granted. It's really why it's important for us to manage information securely and govern that information well. We recognize that the traditional ways of managing data was no longer going to work to meet the rising expectations within our community, customers, our shareholders, our regulators. Fundamentally, having simpler access to our data, coupled with the right tools to support analytics, AI, allows us to tap into a goldmine of business value that was previously too difficult to achieve. In our institutional business alone, we estimate in the region of $150 million of value untapped, simply by better connected data and insights. Through modernizing our data architecture, we have been able to drive efficiencies, we're more agile, and really what this means is we can deliver to customers faster. I really wanted to share with you today our considerations, our learnings that we've had along our journey in implementing a data mesh in a large organization. You know, I think data means different things to different people. When I ask my kids at home what data means to them, our eldest referenced phone usage from her mobile phone. Our youngest described it as all the information on the internet. When I ask my colleagues what data means to them, some say opportunity, others obligation. I think this is where we recognize that it's really important to actually place data closest to the people who know it best, because it does mean a lot of things to different people. And the people that know it best are the ones that are best placed to manage it, use it at will with confidence. Now, this didn't mean that we wanted people to run off and do their own thing. We saw value in taking an enterprise approach. So we implemented standard ways in which to do things, how to manage data products, having common tool sets and patterns, whilst giving teams that flexibility to move at pace, to consume data and produce data at their will as well. And this is where I think self-service is really key. Now, I think I'd love to also share that our philosophy is a build once, use everywhere principle. I think this is what really helps us stay ahead of customer and regulator expectation, because we can move at pace. And lastly, and most importantly, we recognize that good data fuels great AI outcomes. Now, these drivers and the need to move quickly led us toward a data mesh approach, shifting data left, so to speak. So the teams who were responsible for the data were able to make it available as data products and share it across our business over a mesh. Now, our strategy is founded on these 4 pillars on the screen. The first is really around elevating data as a product, as a first-class citizen within our organization. This has helped us make ownership really clear and made the data even easier to share, find, and use, all through the access of a data catalog that's centrally available. Expanding on the data mesh approach, we coupled data products with the concept of producer and consumer model. And this really just helps people exchange data, like any good marketplace does. I think what's really important here is that we also then had the right tools to actually underpin being able to share that data and to do that seamlessly. This is what our data mesh ecosystem looks like within ANZ. In our case, each division of the bank will be represented by 1 or more data nodes on the mesh, data domains, and within those data domains, we have 1 or more nodes. This approach helped us enable domain-oriented governance with the right people who own it and are already accountable for that data, its quality, use, and access. And the nodes within those data domains can take on different forms: lakehouses, data marts, operational data stores. I think what's really important there is that what unifies and unites those nodes is those data products and the common services that we have available. Across these domains and nodes, we use common services for observability, compliance, lineage, and we have scalable blueprints for things like data ingestion and reporting. Like I said, we have a common data catalog where those products are registered, and we have really great metadata embedded within. And of course, this is all hosted on cloud services, so we can really take advantage of scalability and the security that those services offer. Now, within institutional, if we just break that down 1 layer further, at the bottom, we have our foundational capabilities that really support people sharing data. Above that are the data products themselves and what people need to do that. And then over the top, we've got the standards, the common standards that we all follow across the organization. Treating data as a product in this instance really helps us to reuse across the organization and standardize our approach whilst maintaining that flexibility. And now that you have a logical view of the data mesh, so I'd just spend some time just going through the technical architecture. I think what's important here, the important call out, is that it's an open, flexible architecture that encouraged reuse, but also allowed for different parts of the business to tailor the technology for their needs. For example, one area in the bank was interested in progressing AI ML use cases, so went with SageMaker to help them make this easier make it easier for them. Others may have more visualization needs, so we use Tableau to accomplish this. And third-party integrations are an important part of the value proposition and extend to partners and open source tools such as Open Lineage and DBT. What I would really love to call out is one of the AWS services that has made a significant difference in our journey, and that's Data Zone. This has really underpinned our ambition to put the power in our businesses' hands to build and share their data products safely, securely, and really easy. It's a really great tool. Now, I won't go through the detail of this slide, but what we are seeing, and I've got a use case up there, is a lot of industries, including banking, have a requirement to report on environmental, social, and governance. Climate risk being one of those. And traditionally, this would have been a really difficult process for us to collate data across the organization and actually externally as well. We need climate data to produce climate risk models. With a data mesh, though, this has become a very simple task. We share our data products across the mesh. They have a level of trust and quality. And then we're able to connect that data, aggregate it, and produce the reporting we need seamlessly. In short, it allows us to unlock value faster and easier than ever before. And we're seeing these types of opportunities across our business day in, day out now. What I'd love to leave you with is 3 really important learnings that we had on this journey. The first one is really to be bold. I encourage everyone to be bold. Be ambitious, but start small. Get some wins on the board, prove the value before you scale this out. This really helped us keep the business engaged and brought along on the journey with us. Now, this isn't just a technology change. I think actually a large part of our change was around the process and the people. And so I strongly encourage you to consider your operating model. Invest time in building that operating model and the one that you want to create and provide to your business and to your technologists. And I think on the topic of people, we need to upskill. I think as technologists, we take for granted these concepts and what they mean to us. We need to upskill these concepts with our business partners. So understanding what a data product is, even understanding what a good data product looks like. What's a data mesh? I think it's much more than a bunch of new tools and technology. It's a different way of thinking for us and operating your business to be insights-led. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Helene. That was a really, truly insightful look at a modern data strategy under the hood at ANZ Bank. Generative AI isn't just boosting productivity. It's also driving business outcomes directly. Not just a new tool, it is a fundamentally new way to operate. Across every industry, companies are seeing tremendous impact from applying generative AI to their business processes. Lonely Planet took 80% of the cost out of generating travel itineraries. That's part of their core business. Bayer Crop Science reduced the time needed to go from data to insights by 90%. And DoorDash automated 70% of support calls while reducing support costs. As you've seen with many of these customer examples, it's really about how you maximize business outcomes. Even more than that, generative AI can drive more inclusion in making data-driven decisions without being an IT expert, and that is a game changer. Let me just illustrate this point with a simple example. Let's say I'm an insurance company and I do underwriting. Now, before I can issue a policy, I'm going to need to jump through various steps. Similar to the software development lifecycle, could we automate as much as possible out of this business process? Now, RPA, or robotic process automation, it's not a new concept. But generative AI can make a significant difference here. So let's zoom into one of these steps of gathering and verifying information. Again, automation techniques such as OCR, or optical character recognition, they've been around for decades. And so have other automation techniques. The big difference here is that with generative AI, we can work with highly unstructured as well as ambiguous data and bring structure to it. Gen AI provides us with more flexibility in handling documents, text, visuals, diagrams, all while not needing to be constrained or hard-coded into a certain format. And that is the key differentiator. Now, that was just zooming into one step of this process. We can apply this across the entire process and really use generative AI to automate as much as possible, freeing up people's time so that they can focus on higher value tasks. And it doesn't stop there. Just think about all that data that you have: documents, audio files, calls, emails, chats, images, even code. We now have the ability to bring structure into this vast sea of data and perform relevant tasks to drive business outcomes, notably better customer experiences, improved process efficiencies, or even reinventing your products and services. Amazon Bedrock is a powerful tool in automating business processes across your organization. It's a fully managed service that offers a choice of high-performing foundation models from leading AI companies via a single API, along with a broad set of capabilities you need to build Gen AI applications, simplifying development while maintaining privacy and security. Bedrock enables you to easily experiment with a variety of top foundation models, privately customize them with your data using techniques such as fine-tuning or RAG, and create managed agents that execute complex business tasks, all without writing any code. And Bedrock is serverless, so you don't have to manage any infrastructure, and you can securely integrate and deploy generative AI capabilities into your applications using the AWS services that you're already familiar with. Lastly, it's not just services and tools. We also have additional ways to help you accelerate your AI journey. The AWS Generative AI Innovation Center is a $100 million investment that we've made to connect AWS AI and machine learning subject matter experts with customers and partners worldwide. Customers like HighSpot and Ryanair and Twilio. They've engaged with the Innovation Center to develop and accelerate their own generative AI solutions. AWS also offers training and certification resources to help upskill your teams to be able to take advantage of generative AI. And the AWS Partner Network includes partners that have demonstrated expertise delivering AI, machine learning, and Gen AI solutions on AWS. Starting with a use case that brings real value to your business can lead to significant benefits when you scale that up. By automating core processes with generative AI, businesses can save money and increase productivity. This technology improves customer experiences, enhances products and services, and helps address skilled labor shortages in some areas. And what we hear time and time again from customers is that leveraging generative AI has made their employees happier, speeding up the repetitive parts of their work, letting them focus on more important tasks. A great example of a company leveraging generative AI for both their internal teams as well as their customers is Siemens. Here to tell us more about their work with generative AI is Senior Vice President of Global Research Automation at Siemens, Jelena Mitic.
Generative AI is already supercharging our personal lives. But its impact doesn't stop there. Generative AI is supercharging entire industries. Thank you very much for joining me today at my first reInvent to tell you how AWS and Siemens are working together on the topic of generative AI. If you have been in a car anywhere in the United States. It was designed by using Siemens software or manufactured in a factory with Siemens automation, or both. Peek behind the curtain of food production, electronics, chemicals, airspace, and many more, and you will find Siemens everywhere. Just imagine the impact that we can create when leveraging on such a powerful technology like generative AI. So, today, I will tell you how generative AI can help us to address the challenges that we see in industries. How many of you have experience with programming automation systems? Oh, I see. Not that many hands. So if you do, then you know that programming of automation systems is largely done with legacy languages that date back even to 1960s. So the engineers that are proficient with these languages are getting older and retiring. So how do we address the challenge of this shortage of skilled engineers? How do we attract and retain new talents? How do we onboard and upskill new talents so that they are productive from the beginning? And all that in times where we all feel big pressure to address customer needs fastly and efficiently. Our answer to that is by bringing our long-standing domain know-how with state-of-the-art technologies like generative AI. Today, I will introduce you to industrial copilots. Industrial copilots will support humans along the whole industrial value chain to be more efficient when innovating, ultimately leading to increased productivity and creativity. And I'm not talking about one industrial copilot. I'm talking about many industrial copilots that will augment humans' capability when designing, planning, engineering, operating, and servicing. Today, I will focus on engineering. There are many use cases in engineering where generative AI can help to address. I will talk about two: programming assistance. I'm sure many of you here have experience with some coding assistants. But what is different here with industrial copilot is, as we all learn, we are talking about legacy languages. Those are niche. It's not like C or Python. So standard foundation models do not provide results that we need in industry. Therefore, we use our domain know-how through model training and RAG and using industrial-grade quadrals in order to assure that we get the results that are reliable and accurate enough to be used for these purposes, so that the engineers can either program the logic of machines or human-machine interface elements easily and quickly. The other aspect, access to engineering documentation. So, just for you to know, sometimes engineering documentation can be over 20,000 pages. So, to find an answer to a question or a challenge takes some time. And now, Copilot can provide this answer within the seconds by using natural language queries. All this is powered by Amazon Bedrock, Amazon SageMaker, and Anthropic Claude. And the solution looks like that. We store Siemens datasets, Siemens domain know-how, and prepared it for fine-tuning with SageMaker. And now comes a very important step. We use our Siemens engineering framework to evaluate and test these results, because only then we can assure that they are trustworthy and reliable. Finally, we store these Siemens automation models in the Amazon Bedrock that are then serving the industrial copilot. We're just in the beginning, but the first results are very promising. We hear from our customers. Natural-based programming assistance is empowering engineers across over all experience level to be more productive. By adhering to the customer standards, copilots optimize code quality. And this significantly reduces time, development time, and costs for automation engineering. What we learned on this journey? Fine-tuning pre-trained models is a highly efficient way of adapting generative AI for industry use cases and purposes. Careful selection of models and holistic integration planning is essential for seamless deployment and to maximize business impact. And finally, ongoing monitoring and evaluation of models and easily integrating of models into existing systems is crucial to stay ahead. Why? Because we all know that there are a lot of things happening in this space very rapidly. So we need to be able to react on these changes if improve models constantly and be able to integrate them very fast. But we're just at the beginning. The future is agentic. AI agents will bring us closer to where we want to be, fully automated processes. But for that, we need strong partners like AWS. If you bring #1 industrial software company and #1 cloud service provider, there is no limit in what we can create together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jelena. It is so exciting to see the work Siemens and AWS are doing together, and it's making such a big difference for both Siemens and their customers. We've covered a lot of different ways today on how you can all gain leverage through your organizations. As each of you explore these areas, I urge you to be deliberate about your technology choices. Leverage should be part of your calculus. Look for opportunities to both create leverage and take advantage of the leverage that tool selection and design can enable. When you apply that leverage to your biggest challenges, when you concentrate and apply force against the things that are slowing you down, it's then that you'll experience acceleration. That means faster time to innovation, faster time to market, faster time to value, more agility, and of course, more secure and resilient applications. I hope you all enjoyed your flight lesson today. I hope you'll take away some key ideas for leverage and acceleration when you're back at your desk in the pilot seat next week. One more thing. If you want to learn more about how to apply leverage, we've got a phenomenal lineup of innovation talks. First off is our migration and modernization talk. It'll be right here in this room. My colleague Asa will explore all the modernization-related innovations that we've been launching at reInvent. Tomorrow at 1 p.m. local, Bhaskar is going to go deep on generative AI. And Thursday at 2 p.m., Adam and his team will be here to give you an inside look how they're integrating generative AI across the entire software development lifecycle here in AWS. These are 3 talks that you really won't want to miss. And for those tuning in virtually, you'll be able to see them in our portal. You should also take a moment and check out the expo, where you're going to find incredible demos, even takeaways. Shout out to our builder cards with a Gen AI pack added in. And if you get a break, I recommend you try the animal fries at the In-N-Out in the Strip. I went last night. It is one of my permanent stops when I'm here at reInvent. And before I forget, please, at the end, take a moment and fill out those surveys. We actually read them. Feedback is a gift for us. With all of that, I want to thank our incredible customer speakers and, of course, Ben, for such an incredible session. And thank you all for taking the time to join us. Please go have a great rest of your reInvent and check out the rest of the keynotes.